maiden, but she already had a husband. It was on St. James's night, and almost as if I were obliged to. The lanterns went out and the crickets lighted up. In the farthest street corners I touched her sleeping breasts, and they opened to me suddenly like spikes of hyacinth. The starch of her petticoat sounded in my ears like a piece of silk rent by 10 knives. Without silver light on their foliage the trees had grown larger, and a horizon of dogs barked far from the river. Past the blackberries, the reeds, and the hawthorn, underneath her cluster of hair, I made a hollow in the earth. I took off my tie, she took off her dress, I my belt with the revolver, she her 4 bodices, nor nard nor mother of pearl have skin so fine, nor did crystals lit by moon shine with such brilliance. Her thighs slipped away from me like startled fish, half full of fire, half full of cold. That night I ran on the best of roads, mounted on an acre mare, without bridle or stirrups. As a man I won't repeat the things she said to me. The light of understanding has made me most discreet. Smeared with sand and kisses, I took her away from the river. The swords of the lilies battled with the air. I behaved just like myself, like a proper gypsy. I gave her a large sewing basket of straw-coloured satin, and I did not fall in love. For although she had a husband, she told me she was a maiden when I took her by the river. At 5 in the afternoon, it was exactly 5 in the afternoon, a boy brought the white sheet. At 5 in the afternoon, a frail of lime ready prepared. At 5 in the afternoon, the rest was death, and death alone. At 5 in the afternoon, the wind carried away the cotton wool. At 5 in the afternoon, and the oxide scattered crystal and nickel. At 5 in the afternoon, now the dove and the leopard wrestle. At 5 in the afternoon, and a thigh with a desolate horn. At 5 in the afternoon, the brass strings struck up. At 5 in the afternoon, arsenic bells and smoke. At 5 in the afternoon, groups of silence in the corners. At 5 in the afternoon, and the bull alone with a high heart. At 5 in the afternoon, when the sweat of snow was coming. At 5 in the afternoon, when the bull ring was covered with iodine. At 5 in the afternoon, death laid eggs in the wound. At 5 in the afternoon, at 5 in the afternoon, it was exactly 5 in the afternoon. A coffin on wheels is his bed. At 5 in the afternoon, bones and flutes resound in his ears. At 5 in the afternoon, now the bull was bellowing inside his forehead. At 5 in the afternoon, the room was iridescent with agony. At 5 in the afternoon, from far off the gangrene is now coming. At 5 in the afternoon, lily trumpet around his green loins. At 5 in the afternoon, his wounds were burning like suns. At 5 in the afternoon, and the crowd was breaking the windows. At 5 in the afternoon, at 5 in the afternoon. Ah, that terrible 5 in the afternoon. It was 5 by all the clocks. It was 5 in the shade of the afternoon. When my grave is broke up again, some second guest to entertain, for graves have learned that woman had to be but more than one a bed, and he that digs it spies a bracelet of bright hair about the bone. Will he not let us alone, and think that there a loving couple lies, who thought that this device might be some way to get their souls on that last busy day, meet at this grave and make a little stay? If this fall in time or land where misdevotion doth command, then he that digs us up will bring us to a bishop or a king to make us relics. Then thou shalt be a Mary Magdalene, and I a something else thereby. All women shall adore us, and some men. And since at such time miracles are sought, I would have that age by which this paper taught what miracles we harmless lovers wrought. First, we loved well and faithfully, yet knew not what we loved nor why. Difference of sex no more we knew than our guardian angels do, coming and going. We perchance might kiss, but not between those meals. Our hands ne'er touched the seals which nature, injured by late law, sets free. These miracles we did, but now, alas, all measure and all language I should pass, should I tell what a miracle she was. I played with you mid cowslips blowing when I was 6 and you were 4, when garlands weaving, flower balls throwing, were pleasures soon to please no more. Through groves and meads, o'er grass and heather, with little playmates to and fro, we wandered hand in hand together. But that was 60 years ago. You grew a lovely roseate maiden, and still our early love was strong. Still with no care our days were laden, they glided joyously along, and I did love you dearly. How dearly words want power to show, I thought your heart was touched as nearly, but that was 50 years ago. Then other lovers came around you, your beauty grew from year to year, and many a splendid circle found you, the centre of its glittering sphere. I saw you then, first vows forsaking, on rank and wealth your hand bestow. Oh, then I thought my heart was breaking, but that was 40 years ago. And I lived on to wed another, no cause she gave me to repine, and when I heard you were a mother, I did not wish the children mine. My own young flock in fair progression made up a pleasant Christmas row. My joy in them was past expression, but that was 30 years ago. You grew a matron plump and comely, you dwelt in fashion's highest blaze, yet my earthly lot was far more homely, but I too had my festal days. No merrier eyes have ever glistened around the hearth-throne's wintry glow than when my youngest child was christened, but that was 20 years ago. Time passed, my eldest girl was married, and I am now a grandsire grey. One pet of 4 years old I've carried amongst the wild-flowered meads to play, in our old fields of childish pleasure, where now as then the cowslips blow, she fills her basket's ample measure, and that is not yet 10 years ago. But though first love's impassioned blindness has passed away in colder night, I still have thought of you with kindness, and shall do till our last good night. The ever-rolling silent hours will bring a time we shall not know, when our young days of gathering flowers will be 100 years ago. Ye have robbed, said he, ye have slaughtered and made an end. Take your ill-gotten plunder and bury the dead. What will ye more of your guest and sometime friend? Blood for our blood, they said. He laughed. If one may settle the score for 5, I'm ready, but let the reckoning stand till day. I have loved the sunlight as dearly as any alive. You shall die at dawn, said they. He flung his empty revolver down the slope. He climbed alone to the eastward edge of the trees. All night long, in a dream untroubled of hope, he brooded, clasping his knees. He did not hear the monotonous roar that fills the river where the Yasin River sullenly flows. He did not see the starlight on the Laspa hills or the far Afghan snows. He saw the April noon on his books aglow, the wisteria trailing in at the window wide. He heard his father's voice from the terrace below, calling him down to ride. He saw the grey little church across the park, the mound that hid the loved and honoured dead, the Norman arch, the chancel softly dark, the brasses black and red. He saw the school close, sunny and green, the runner beside him, the stand by the parapet wall, the distant tape and the crowd roaring between, his own name over all. He saw the dark wainscot and the timbered roof, the long tables and the faces merry and keen, the college eight and their trainer dining aloof, the dons on the dais serene. He watched the liner's stem ploughing the foam. He felt her trembling speed and thrash of her screw. He heard the passengers' voices talking of home. He saw the flag she flew, and now it was dawn. He rose strong on his feet and strode to his ruined camp below the wood. He drank the breath of the morning cool and sweet. His murderers round him stood. Light on the Lasper hills was broadening fast. The blood-red snow peaks chilled to a dazzling white he turned, and saw the golden circle at last cut by the eastern height. O glorious life who dwelleth in earth and sun, I have lived, I praise and adore thee. A sword swept. Over the pass the voices one by one faded, and the hill slept. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dales and fields, or woods or sleepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses, and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cup of flowers and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. They told me, Heractolus, they told me you were dead. They brought me bitter news to hear and bitter tears to shed. I wept as I remembered how often you and I had tired the sun with talking and sent him down the sky. And now that thou art lying, my dear old Carian guest, a handful of grey ashes long, long ago at rest, still are thy pleasant voices, thy nightingales awake, for death he taketh all away, but them he cannot take. Remember me when I am gone away, gone far into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go, yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of the future you had planned. Only remember me. You understand it will be late to counsel them who pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than you should remember and be sad. Piping down the valleys wild, piping songs of pleasant glee, on a cloud I saw a child, and he laughing said to me, "Pipe a song about a lamb." So I piped with merry cheer, "Piper, pipe that song again." So I piped, he wept to hear. Oh, drop thy pipe, thy happy pipe, sing thy songs of happy cheer. So I sang the same again, whilst he wept with joy to hear. Piper, sit thee down and write in a book that all might read. So he vanished from my sight, and I plucked a hollow reed, and I made a rural pen, and I stained the water clear, and I wrote my happy songs every child ought to hear. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye framed thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burned that fire within thine eyes? On what wings dared he aspire? What the hand dared seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? When thy heart began to beat, what dread hand formed thy dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain, knit the strength and forged thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dared thy deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Have you beheld with much delight a red rose peeping through a white, or else a cherry doubly graced within a lily's centre placed? Or ever marked the pretty beam a strawberry shows half drowned in cream? Or seen rich rubies blushing through a pure smooth pearl and orient too? So like to this, nay, all the rest, is each nipple on her breast. Loveliest of trees, the cherry now is hung with bloom along the bough, and stands about the woodland ride, wearing white for Eastertide. Now of my 60 years and 10, 20 will not come again, and take from 70 springs a score, it only leaves me 50 more. And since to look at things in bloom 50 springs are little room, about the woodlands I will go, to see the cherry hung with snow. I hoed and trenched and weeded, and took the flowers too fair. I brought them home unheeded, the hue was not to wear. So up and down I sow them, for lads like me to find, when I shall lie below them, a dead man out of mind. Some seed the birds devour, and some the season mars, and here and there will flower the solitary stars, and fields will yearly bear them, as light-leaved spring comes on, and luckless lads will wear them, when I am dead and gone. The vane on Hewley's steeple veers bright, a far-known sign, and there lie Hewley people, and there lie friends of mine. Tall in their midst the tower divides the shade and sun, and the clock strikes the hour and tells the time to none. To south the headstones cluster, the sunny mounds lie thick, the dead are more in muster at Hewley than the quick. North, for a soon-told number, chill graves the sexton delves, and steeply shadowed slumber the slayers of themselves. To north, to south lie parted with Hewley Tower above, the kind, the single-hearted, the lads I used to love, and south or north 'tis only a choice of friends one knows, and I shall ne'er be lonely, asleep with these or those. Here I am, an old man in a dry month, been read to by a boy waiting for rain. I was neither at the hot gates, nor fought in the warm rain, nor knee-deep in the salt marsh, heaving a cutlass, bitten by flies, fought my house. My house is a decayed house, and the Jew squats on the window-sill, the owner spawned in some estaminet of Antwerp, blistered in Brussels, patched and peeled in London. The goat coughs at night in the field overhead. Rocks, moss, stonecrop, iron, merds. The woman keeps the kitchen, makes tea, sneezes at evening, poking the peevish gutter. I am an old man, a dull head among windy spaces. Signs are taken for wonders. We would see a sign. The word within a word, unable to speak a word, swaddled with darkness, in the juvescence of the year came Christ the tiger. In depraved May, dogwood and chestnut, flowering Judas, to be eaten, to be divided, to be drunk, among whispers by Mr. Silvero, who with caressing hands at Limoges, who walked all night in the next room, by Hakawa, bowing amongst the Titians, by Madame de Turquist in the dark room, shifting the candles, Fräulein von Kulp, who turned in the hall, one hand on the door. Vacant shuttles weave the wind, I have no ghosts. An old man in a draughty house, under a windy knob. Hélas! To drift with every passion till my soul is a stringed lute on which all winds can play. Is it for this that I have given away mine ancient wisdom and austere control? Methinks my life is a twice-written scroll scrawled over on some boyish holiday, with idle songs for pipe and virelet which do but mar the secret of the whole. Surely there was a time I might have trod the sunlit heights, and from life's dissonance struck one clear chord to reach the ears of God. Is that time dead? Lo, with a little rod I did but touch the honey of romance, and must I lose a soul's inheritance? The hunchback in the park, a solitary mister, propped between trees and water from the opening of the garden lock that lets the trees and water enter until the Sunday's sombre bell at dark, eating from a newspaper, drinking water from a chained cup that the children filled with gravel, in the fountain basin where I sailed my ship, slept at night in a dog kennel, but nobody chained him up. Like the park birds he came early, like the water he sat down, and mister they called, "Hey, mister," the truant boys from town, running when they heard him clearly out of sound, past lake and rockery, laughing when he shook his paper, hunchbacked in mockery, through the loud zoo of the willow groves, dodging the park keeper with his stick that picked up leaves, and the old dog sleeper, alone amongst the nurses and swans, whilst the boys amongst the willows made the tigers jump out of their eyes, to roar on the rockery stones, and the groves were blue with sailors. Made all day until bell time, a woman figure without fault, straight as a young elm, straight and tall from his crooked bones, that she might stand in the night after the locks and chains, all night in the unmade park, among the railings and the shrubberies, the birds, the grass, the trees, the lake, and the wild boys, innocent as strawberries, had followed the hunchback to his kennel in the dark. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle's starry time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes, and honoured amongst wagons I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time I lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the wild fall night. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard and the singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means, and green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath ran slowly in the pebbles of holy streams. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely the hay, fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing, lovely and watery and fire green as grass. And nightly under the simple stars as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed amongst the stables, the nightjars flying with the ricks and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to awake, and the farm like a wanderer white with the dew come back, the cock on his shoulder, it was all shining, it was Adam and maiden, the sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day, So it must have been after the birth of the simple light, in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm, of the whinnying green stable on the fields of praise. And honoured amongst foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new-made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways, my wishes raced through the house-high hay, and nothing I cared, as my sky-blue trades, that time allows in all his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs, before the children green and golden follow him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamp-white days, that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft, to the shadow of my hand, in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields, and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey, the ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter, and the camels galled, sore-foot, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on the slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling and running away, and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty, and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a water-mill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued, and arrived at evening not one moment too soon, finding the place it was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long, long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again, but set down, this. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here, in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I'm an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt, an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and metriculous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon a beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back, when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea-girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown. Under the rose tree's dancing shade there stands a little ivory girl, pulling the leaves of pink and pearl with pale green nails of polished jade. The red leaves fall upon the mould, and white leaves flutter one by one, down to the blue bowl where the sun like a great dragon writhes in gold. The white leaves float upon the air, the red leaves flutter idly down, some fall upon her yellow gown, and some upon her raven hair. She takes an amber lute and sings, and as she sings, a silver crane begins his scarlet neck to strain, and flap his burnished metal wings. She takes a lute of amber bright, and from the thicket where he lies, her lover with his almond eyes watches her movements in delight. And now she gives a cry of fear, and tiny tears begin to start. A thorn has wounded with its dart the pink-veined seashell of her ear. And now she laughs a merry note. There has fallen a petal of the rose just where the yellow satin shows the blue-veined flower of her throat. With pale green nails of polished jade, pulling the leaves of pink and pearl, there stands a little ivory girl under the rose tree's dancing shade. We caught the tread of dancing feet, we loitered down the moonlit street, and stopped beneath the harlot's house. Inside, above the din and fray, we heard the loud musicians play the true Liebherz of Strauss. Like strange mechanical grotesques, making fantastic arabesques, the shadows raced across the blind. We watched the ghostly dancers spin, the sound of horn and violin, like black leaves wheeling in the wind. Like wire-pulled automatons, slim silhouetted skeletons, when sliding through the slow quadrille, they took each other by the hand and danced a stately saraband. Their laughter echoed thin and shrill, and sometimes a clockwork puppet pressed a phantom lover to her breast. Sometimes they seemed to try to sing. Sometimes a horrible marionette came out and smoked its cigarette upon the steps like a live thing. Then turning to my love I said, "The dead are dancing with the dead, the dust is whirling with the dust." But she heard the violin, and left my side and entered in. Love passed into the house of lust. Then suddenly the tune went false, the dancers wearied of the waltz, the shadows ceased to wheel and whirl, and down the long and silent street the dawn with silver-sandaled feet crept like a frightened girl. Sweet, I blame you not, for mine the fault was. Had I not been made of common clay, I had climbed the higher heights unclimbed, yet seen the fuller air, the larger day. From the wildness of my wasted passion I had struck a better, clearer song, lit some lighter light of freer freedom, battled with some hydra-headed wrong. Had my lips been smitten into music by the kisses that made them bleed, you had walked with Bysium the angels on that verdant and enamelled mead. I had trod the road which Dante trading saw the suns of 7 circles shine. I perchance had seen the heavens opening as they opened to the Florentine, and the mighty nations would have crowned me who am crownless now and without name. And some orient dawn had found me kneeling on the threshold of the house of fame. I had sat within that marble circle where the oldest bard is ever young, and the pipe is ever dropping honey, and the lyre's strings are ever strung. Keats had lifted up his hymeal curls from out the poppy-seeded wine, with ambrosial mouth had kissed my forehead, clasped the noble hand in mine. And at springtide, when the apple blossoms brush the burnished bosom of the dove, 2 young lovers lying in an orchard would have read the story of our love. would have read the legend of my passion, known the bitter secret of my heart, kissed as we have kissed, but never parted as we two are fated now to part. For the crimson flower of our life is eaten by the cankerworm of truth, and no hand can gather up the fallen withered petals of the rose of youth. Yet I am not sorry that I loved you. Oh, what else had I, a boy, to do, for the hungry teeth of time devour and the silent-footed years pursue? Rudderless, we drift athwart a tempest, and when once the storm of youth is past, without lyre, without lute or chorus, death, the silent pilot, comes at last. And within the grave there is no pleasure, for the blind worm battens on the root, and desire shudders into ashes, and the tree of passion bears no fruit. Ah, what else had I to do but love you? God's own mother was less dear to me, and less dear the Cytherean rising, like an argent lily from the sea. I have made my choice, have lived my poems, and though youth has gone in wasted days, I have found the lover's crown of myrtle better than the poet's crown of bays. The listeners. Is there anybody there? Said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses on the forest ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveller's head, and he smoked upon the door a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. But no one descended to the traveller, no head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes where he stood perplexed and still, but only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to the voice from the world of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, whilst his horse moved cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote on the door, even louder, and lifted his head. Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake, full echoing through the shadowness of the still house from the one man left awake. Aye, they heard his foot on the stirrup, and the sound of the iron on stone, and now the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings, there midnight all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of linnets' wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements grey, and I hear it deep in the heart's core. Buy my English posies, Kent and Surrey May, violets of the undercliff wet with Channel spray, cowslips from the Devon coombe, Midland firs afire. Buy my English posies, and I'll tell your heart's desire. Buy my English posies, you that scorn the May, won't you greet a friend from home half the world away, green against the draggled drift, faint and frail and first? Buy my northern bloodroot, and I'll know where you were nursed. Robin down the logging road whistles, come to me. Spring has found the maple grove, the sap is running free. All the winds of Canada cannot call the ploughing rain, so take the flower, turn the hour, and kiss your love again. Buy my English posies, he's to match your need. Buy a tuft of royal heath, buy a bunch of weed, white as sand of Mussenberg, spun before the gale, by my heath and lilies, and I'll tell you whence you hail. Under hot Constantia broad the vineyards lie, throned and thorned the aching berg props the speckless sky. Slow below the Windberg firs trails the tilted wain. Take the flower and turn the hour and kiss your love again. Oh, buy my English posies, you that will not turn. Buy my hot wood clematis, buy a frond of fern, gathered where the Erskine leaps down the road to Lawn. Buy my Christmas creeper, and I'll say where you were born. West away from Melbourne dust holidays begin. They that mock at Paradise woo at Cora Lynn. Through the great South Otway gums sing to the great South Main. Take the flower and turn the hour and kiss your love again. Oh, buy my English posies, here's your choice unsold. Buy a blood-red myrtle bloom, buy a cower's gold, flung for gift the torpor's face, sign that spring is come. Buy my clinging myrtle, and I'll give you back your home. Broom behind the windy town, pollen of the pine, bell, bird in the leafy deep, where the ratters twine, fern above the saddle-bow, flax upon the plain. Take the flower and turn the hour and kiss your love again. Buy my English posies, ye that have your own, buy them for a brother's sake overseas alone. Weed you trample underfoot, floods his heart abrim, bird you never heeded, oh, she calls his dead to him. Far and far our homes are set around the seven seas. Woe for us if we forget, we'll hold by these. Unto each his mother beach, bloom and bird and land, mothers of the seven seas, love and understand. Tide be running the great world over. 'Twas only last June month, I mind, that we was thinking the toss and call in the breast of the lover, so everlasting as the sea. He is the same little fishes that splutter and swim with the moon's old glim on the grey wet sand, and him no more to me nor me to him than the wind going over my hand. Sally is gone that was so kindly, Sally is gone from Hanukkah Hill, and the briar grows ever since then so blindly, and ever since then the clapper is still, and the sweeps have fallen from Hanukkah Mill. Hanukkah Hill is in desolation, ruin atop and a field unploughed, and spirits that call on a falling nation, spirits that loved her calling aloud, spirits abroad in a windy cloud, spirits that call and no one answers. Hanukkah's down and England's done, wind and whistle for pipe and dancers, and never a ploughman under the sun, never a ploughman, never a one. They hunt the velvet tigers in the jungle, a spotted jungle full of shapeless patches. Sometimes they're leaves, sometimes they're hanging flowers, sometimes they're hot gold patches of the sun. They hunt the velvet tigers in the jungle. What do they hunt by glimmering pools of water, by the round silver moon, the pool of heaven? In the striped grass, amid the barkless trees, the stars scattered like eyes of beasts above them. What do they hunt? Their hot breath scorching insects, insects that blunder blindly in the way, vividly fluttering. They also are hunting, are glittering with the tiny ecstasy. The grass is flaming, the trees are growing, the very mud is gurgling in the pools, green toads are watching, crimson parrots flying, two pairs of eyes meet one another glowing. They hunt the velvet tigers in the jungle. They like swans asleep beyond the village which men still call Tyre, with leaden age O'Carga dipping deep for Famagusta and the hidden sun that rings black Cyprus with a lake of fire. And all those ships were certainly so old, who knows how oft with squat and noisy gun, questing brown slaves or Syrian oranges. The pirate Genoese half raked them till they rolled blood, water, fruit, and corpses up the hold. But now through friendly seas they softly run, painted with mid-blue blue or shore sea green, still patterned with the vine and grapes in gold, that I have seen, pointing her shapely shadows from the dawn, an image tumbled on a rose-swept bay, a drowsy ship of some yet older day, and wonder's breath indrawn. Thought I, who knows, but in the same, fished up beyond air, patched up new, stern painted brighter blue, that talkative bald-headed seaman came, 12 patient comrades sweating at the oar, from Troy's doomed crimson shore, and with great lies about his wooden horse, set the crew laughing and forgot his course. It was so old a ship, who knows, and yet so beautiful I watched in vain to see the mast burst open with a rose, and the whole deck put on its leaves again. The man who dreamed of fairyland. He stood amongst a crowd at Drumaha. His heart hung all upon a silken dress, and he had known at last some tenderness, before earth made of him her sleepy care. But when a man poured fish into a pile, it seemed they raised their little silver heads, and sang how day, a druid twilight, sheds upon a dim green well-beloved isle, where people love beside star-laden seas, how time may never mar their fairy vows, under the woven roofs of quickened boughs. The singing shook him out of his new ease. He wandered by the sands of Lizardale. His mind ran all on money, cares, and fears, and he had known at last some prudent years, before they heaped his grave under the hill. But whilst he passed before a plashy place, a lugworm with its grey and muddy mouth sang how somewhere to north or west or south there dwelt a gay, exulting, gentle race, and how beneath those 3 times blessed skies a Danian fruitage makes a shower of moons, and as it falls awakens leafy tunes, and at that singing he was no more wise. He mused beside the well of Scanavin, he mused upon his mockers without fail, his sudden vengeance were his country tale, now that deep earth has drunk his body in. But one small knot grass growing by the pool told where, little, all unneeded voice, old silence bids a lonely folk rejoice, and chaplet their crown brows with leafage cool. And how when fades the sea-strewn rose of day, a gentle feeling wraps them like a fleece, and all their trouble dies into a peace. The tale drove his fine angry mood away. He slept under the hill of Lunagal, and might have known at last unhaunted sleep, under that cold and vapour-turbaned steep. Now that old earth has taken man and all, were not the worms that spired about his bones proclaiming with a low and reedy cry that God had leaned his hands out of the sky to bless that isle with honey in his tones, that none may feel the power of squall and wave, and no one any leaflet-crowned dancer miss, until he burn up nature with a kiss, that man has found no comfort in the grave. On the coast of Coromandel. On the coast of Coromandel dance they to the tunes of Handel. Corally that coral coast correlates the bone to ghost, till word and limb and note seem one, blending, binding, act to tone. All day long they point the sandal on the coast of Coromandel. Lemon yellow legs all bare, pirouette to pericude air. From the first green shoots of morn, cool as northern hunting horn, till the nightly tropic wind, with its rough-tongued grating rine, shatters the frail spires of spice, imaged in the lawns of rice. Mirror flat and mirror green is that lovely water sheen. Saraband and rigadoon dance they through the purring moon. Hold the lacquered waves expand, golden dragons on the sand, dragons that must steaming die from the hot sun's agony. when elephants of royal blood plod to bed through lilied mud, then evening, sweet as any mango, bids them do a gay fandango, minuet, jig, and gavotte. How they hate the turkey trot, the Nautch dance and the Highland fling, just as they will never sing any music save by Handel on the coast of Coromandel. Man's pig. Already fallen plum bloom stars the green, and apple boughs as gnarred as old toads' backs, where their small roses ere a rose is seen. The building thrush watches old Job, who stacks the bright peeled osiers on the sunny fence, and Pensouse grunts to hear him stumping by, and tries to push the bolt and scamper thence, but her ringed snout still keeps her to the sty. Then out he lets her run, away she snorts in building gallop for the cottage door, with hungry hubbub begging crusts and orts, then like a whirlwind bumping round once more, nuzzling the dog, making the pullets run, and sulky as a child when play's done. Look, stranger, at this island now, the leaping light for your delight discovers. Stand stable here and silent be, that through the channels of the ear may wander like a river the swaying sound of the sea. Here at the small field's ending pause, where the chalk wall falls to the foam, and its tall ledges opposite the pluck and knock of the tide, and the shingle scrambles after the sucking surf, and the gull lodges a moment on its sheer side. Far off, like floating seeds, the ships diverge on urgent voluntary errands, and the full view indeed may enter, and move in memory as now these clouds do, that pass the harbour mirror, and all the summer through the water saunter. The force that through the green fuse, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, drives my green age, that blasts the roots of trees, is my destroyer. And I am dumb to tell the crooked rose my youth is bent by winter, fever. The force that drives the water through the rocks drives my red blood, that drives the mountain streams, turns mine to wax. And I am dumb to mouth into my veins how at the mountain spring the same mouth sucks. The hand that swirls the water in the pool stirs the quicksand, that ropes the blowing wind, hauls my shroud sail, and I am dumb to tell the hanging man how of my clay is made the hangman's lime. The lips of time leach to the fountain head, love drips and gathers, but the fallen blood shall calm her sores. And I am dumb to tell the weather's wind how time has ticked a heaven round the stars. And I am dumb to tell the lover's tomb how at my sheet goes the same crooked worm. Colonel Fantock. Thus spoke the lady underneath the trees. I was a member of a family whose legend was of hunting, all the rare and unattainable brightness of the air, a race whose fabled skill in falconry was used on the small songbirds, and a winged and blinded destiny. I think that only winged ones know the highest eyrie so lonely. There is a land austere and elegant. The castle seemed an arabesque in music. We moved in a hallucination born of silence, which like music gave us lotus to eat, perfuming lips and hour-long eyelids as we trailed over sad summer grass or sat beneath a smooth and mournful tree, and time passed suavely, imperceptibly. But Dagobah and Peregrine and I were children then. We walked like shy gazelles amongst the music of the thin flower bells, and life still held some promise. Never ask of what. But life seemed less a stranger then than ever after in this cold existence. I always was a little outside life, and so the things we touch could comfort me. I loved the shy dreams we could hear and see, for I was like one dead. like a small ghost, a little cold air wandering and lost. All day within the snow straw-roofed arabesque of the towered castle and the sleepy gardens wandered. We, those delicate paladins, the waves, told us fantastic legends that we pondered, and the soft leaves were breasted like a dove, crooning old mournful tales of untrue love. When night came, sounding like the growth of trees, my great-grandmother bent to say good night, and the enchanted moonlight seemed transformed into the silvery tinkling of an old and gentle music box that played a tune of Circean enchantments and far seas. Her voice was lulling like the splash of these. When she had given me her good-night kiss, there in her lengthened shadow I saw this of military ghost with mayfly whiskers, poor harmless creature, blown by the cold wind, boasting of unseen, unreal victories to a harsh, unbelieving world unkind. For all the battles that this warrior fought were his with cold poverty and helpless age. His spoils were shelters from the winter's rage, and so for ever through his braggart's voice, through all the martial trumpet's sound, his soul wept with a little sound so pitiful, knowing that he is outside life forever, with no one that will warm or comfort him. He is not even dead, but death's buffoon on a bare stage, a shrunken pantaloon. His military banner never fell, nor his account of victories. The stories of old apocryphal misfortunes, glorious, which comforted his heart in later life, when he was the Napoleon of the schoolroom, and all the victories he gained were over little boys who would never learn to spell. All day within the sweet and ancient gardens he had my childish self for audience, whose body flat and strange, whose pale straight hair made me appear as though I had been drowned. We all have the remote air of a legend, and Dagobert my brother, whose large strength, great body, and grave beauty still reflect the Angevin kings from whom we sprang. And sweet as the young tender winds that stir in thickets when the earliest flower bells sing, upon the boughs was just his character. And Peregrine the youngest, with a naive shy grace like a fawn's, whose slant eyes seemed the warm green light beneath eternal boughs. His hair was like the frond of feathers, life in him was changing ever, springing fresh as the dark songs of birds. The furry warmth and purring sound of fires was in his voice, which never failed to warm and comfort me. And there were haunted summers in Troy Park, when all the stillness budded into leaves. We listened like Ophelia drowned in blonde and fluid hair beneath stag-antlered trees. Then in the ancient park the country pleasant shadows fell as brown as any pheasant, and Colonel Fantock seemed like one of these. Sometimes for comfort in the castle kitchen he drowsed, where with a sweet and velvet lip the snap-dragons within the fire of their red summer never tire, and Colonel Fantock liked our company. For us he wandered over each old lie, changing the flowering hawthorn full of bees into the silver helm of Hercules, for us defended Troy from the top stair outside the nursery, when the calm full moon was like the sound within the growth of trees. But then came one cruel day in deepest June, when pink flowers seemed a sweet Mozartian tune, and Colonel Fantock pondered o'er a book. A gay voice like a honeysuckle nook, so sweet, said, "It's Colonel Fantock's age which makes him babble, blown by winter's rage." The poor old man then knew his creeping fate, the darkening shadow that would take his sight and hearing, and he thought of his saved pence, which scarce would rent a grave. That youthful voice was a dark bell that ever clanged too late, too late. a creeping shadow that would steal from him even the little boys who could not spell, his only prisoners. On that June day, cold death had taken his first citadel. A piper in the streets today set up a tune and tuned and started to play, and away, away, away on the tide of his music we started. On every side doors and windows were opened wide, and men left down their work and came, and women with petticoats coloured like flame, and little bare feet that were blue with cold, went dancing back to the age of gold. And all the world went gay for half an hour in the street today. Walls. With no consideration, no pity, no shame, they've built walls around me thick and high. And now I sit here feeling hopeless. I can't think of anything else. This fate gnaws in my mind. Because I had so much to do outside when they were building the walls, how could I not have noticed? But I never heard the builders, not a sound. Imperceptibly they've closed me off from the outside world. He swears every now and then to begin a better life. But when night comes with its own counsel, its own compromises and prospects, when night comes with its own power of a body that needs and demands, he returns, lost, to the same fatal pleasure. An old man at the noisy end of the cafe, head bent over the table, an old man sits alone, a newspaper in front of him. And in the miserable banality of old age he thinks how little he enjoyed the years when he had strength and wit and looks. He knows he's very old now, sees it, feels it, yet it seems he was young just yesterday. The time's gone by so quickly, gone so quickly. And he thinks how discretion fooled him, how he always believed so stupidly that cheat who said, "Tomorrow you have plenty of time." He remembers impulses bridled, the joy he sacrificed, every chance he lost, now mocks his brainless prudence. But so much thinking, so much remembering, makes the old man dizzy. He falls asleep, his head resting on the cafe table. Prayer. A sailor drowned in the sea's depths, unaware, his mother goes and lights a tall candle before the icon of Our Lady, praying that he'll come back quickly, that the weather may be good. Her ear cocked always to the wind, while she prays and supplicates. The icon listens, solemn and sad, knowing the son she waits for never will come back. The bandaged shoulder. He said he'd hurt himself against a wall or had fallen down, but there was probably some other reason for the bandaged shoulder. With a rather abrupt gesture, reaching for a shelf to bring down some photographs he wanted to look at, the bandage came undone, and a little blood ran. I did it up again, taking my time over the bandage. He wasn't in pain, and I liked looking at the blood. It was a thing of my love, that blood. When he left, I found in front of his chair a bloody rag, part of the dressing, a rag to be thrown straight into the garbage, and I put it to my lips and kept it there a long while, the blood of love against my lips. Understanding. In my younger days, my sensual life, how clearly I see their meaning now. What needless, futile regret. But I didn't see the meaning of it then. In the loose living of my early years, the impulses of my poetry were shaped, and the boundaries of my art were plotted. That's why the regretting was so fickle, and my resolutions to hold back, to change, lasted 2 weeks at the most. The afternoon sun. Oh, this room, how well I know it. Now they're renting it and the one next to it as offices. The whole house has become an office building for agents, businessmen, companies. This room, how familiar it is. The couch was here near the door. A Turkish carpet in front of it. Close by, the shelf with 2 yellow vases. On the right, no, opposite, a wardrobe with a mirror. In the middle, the table where he wrote, and the 3 big wicker chairs beside the window, the bed where we made love so many times. They must still be around somewhere, those old things. Beside the window, the bed, the afternoon sun used to touch half of it. One afternoon at 4 o'clock we separated for only a week, and then that week became forever. Longings, like the beautiful bodies of those who have died before growing old, sadly shut away in a sumptuous mausoleum, roses by the head and jasmine at their feet, so appear the longings that have passed without being satisfied. Not one of them granted a single night of pleasure, or one of its radiant mornings. He asked about the quality. He left the office where he'd been given a trivial, poorly paid job, something like £8 a month, including bonuses. Left at the end of the dreary work that kept him bent all afternoon, came out at 7 and walked off slowly, idling his way down the street, good-looking and interesting, showing as he did that he'd reached his full sensual capacity. He'd turned 29 the month before. He idled his way down the main street and the poor side streets that led to his home, passing in front of a small shop that sold cheap and flimsy merchandise for workers. He saw a face inside, a figure that compelled him to go in, and he pretended he wanted to look at some coloured handkerchiefs. He asked about the quality of the handkerchiefs and how much they cost, his voice choking, almost silenced by desire, and the answers came back in the same mood, distracted, the voice hushed, offering hidden consent. They kept on talking about the merchandise, but the only purpose that their hands might touch over the handkerchiefs, that their faces, their lips might move closer together as though by chance, a moment's meeting of limb against limb. Quickly, secretly, so that the shop owner sitting at the back wouldn't realize what was going on. Half an hour. I never had you, nor I suppose will I ever have you. A few words, an approach, as in the bar yesterday, nothing more. It's sad, I admit. But we who serve art, sometimes with the mind's intensity, can create pleasure that seems almost physical. But of course only for a short time. That's how in the bar yesterday, mercifully helped by alcohol, I had half an hour that was totally erotic. And I think you understood this and stayed slightly longer on purpose. That too was very necessary. Because with all the imagination, all the magical, alcohol, I needed to see your lips as well, needed your body near me. Children of Demeter at Alephsis, enthroned, gazing above the sea to Salamis, children of time by Costus ruled, idly sag in wicker chairs, eternal cicadas ceaselessly orchestrate, echoing their frenzied scrapings, fiddlers in shady pines. Easily waves lap lullabies softly, rounded marble cools to their caress, shadows of pearl lengthen to purple, elegantly brushed lips of geranium pinkly nestle in cloaks of green, perfumes mystic and rare cascade, entwining bougainvillea in silken pods, cream and rich red scramble, senses vibrate to beauty. If Taxius reposes, hands entwined, sighs, this is the best time, silence is truth, even the last cicada ceases. The orator. They say he was a Greek who brought the word. The market stalls were empty on that day. Agog they listened, ears cupped, they heard a gospel. Few understood, few cared to understand. Brown faces, wrinkled eyes alert, some news of wars in distant lands. How silly. A new Apollo from some Hebrew cult, not Bacchic, but of Zus true born. Adonis with a promise to return. Old stories never die. The stranger gave a sign. They understood. All signs have meanings. This cast out evil and invoked the god. Useful to know. They grouped and chatted, then resumed their work of selling fish and olives, cheese and bread. Milo laughed. Divinities give blessings to the meek? Ha! What cheek! Ovation. The last chord fading, final and well sung. Apollo was with me. I stood arm raised high, fingers crooked in salutation. The tiered crescents rose, clapped and called, my song was sung. What could an actor desire more at Delphi than success? The Omphale stone at Delphi. This is my Omphale, this my central core, this the cord which bound me to the womb. When severed, I became that island of a man that drifts through time and passes on. And yet, stranger, I have been here before. This is not new to me. These horned crags of marble rising high, tossing their peaks towards a cobalt blue, caressed by time and cradling soft below, ruined yet in splendour, ancient Delphi lies. Treasuries are emptied, urine stales the groves, where once the Castilian spring rang free. Pedestals are blind, naked, unadorned. Apollo's ruined temple still strikes awe, for he was God, and hallowed is this place. Gone the tripod, gone the Pythoness, but I remain, severed, an island of a man. This is my Omphale. The gymnasium at Marmara. Swifter than a flash of swallows, hair braided and our bodies oiled, snake-supple limbs, toes feathering the earth, we ran. Oceans of sound cascading on the ear, waves of acclamation rose high and in despair receded. How mighty roared those throats for victory. Yesterday, in our springtime surge of youth, today, crinkled, dry, grey beards we crouch, stiff-limbed, bent, facing the sun for warmth.